Oh, you're a Laneige girl?
Well, I don't know. I bought it recently, but I like it. What do you think? You're not into it? Do you think it makes your lips drier?
Kind of.
Really? It's like one of those that has like
for me,
a
yeah.
yeah. I like that.
I gotta be honest.
So what's your...
You Beauty Plasma.
Oh, I like that too.
Yeah, it's
But
good.
at least this tastes good though.
It does taste good.
Because you end up eating half of it.
You eat
so
half of it,
yeah.
of course. I like a soft open, so we can just start talking
Okay, great.
right now.
I'll do anything you told me to.
What was...
Literally. I'll play the piano.
What was the best thing that you ate this week?
Well, I was in Mexico.
Oh my God, with my ex-boyfriend.
With your ex-boyfriend.
What'd you think?
He was really, really fun and nice. And I've known him for a long time.
He's so fun and nice.
He was great.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you go on those kinds of trips, it's like going to camp.
Of
Like
course.
everyone becomes friends.
I know.
It's
I had
fast
FOMO.
way to bond.
Yeah, yeah.
But the food's just so incredible in Mexico
So
that like
good.
every single thing I ate was heaven and fresh and like vegetable forward.
And the tequila Lalo is the best.
Wait, I was not hungover for one
No, it's
second,
amazing. It's incredible.
and I only drank.
I know. It's incredible. And I just...
Because it's only 3 ingredients.
I had FOMO because you were there. It would be so fun. And I was Chris Brock's intern one time.
No way.
Yeah, back in the day. Mm-hmm.
How funny is that?
At Brock Collection. So I just saw so many people, and
Which were the most beautiful clothes.
oh my God.
So you know what he told me is he's starting menswear, and he showed me the
that's so
new
cool.
collection, and it's actually like it's like the row but more surfery, but it's that clean.
I
It's
mean,
so good for men. I was like,
epic.
I would wear half of it, but honestly, he's so talented.
I'm so talented. I mean, every morning I wake up and I wipe the drool off my face and I go onto the Real and I look for old Brock Collection pieces to collect.
Smart.
Because I loved, oh my God, I loved
I mean, they
Brock
were a
so
fortune
much.
then. There was no way I was buying them full
Totally.
price when they were on the
I
market.
know.
But you know what else I really like for that? I do the same thing every morning on Vestiaire with old Prada prints because I'm into old vintage Prada prints. And Vestiaire, sometimes I feel like it's an easier search than the Real. Love them
Really?
both, but you should try it. Yes.
No, the Real is a sport, and my community always asks me, like, how do you find such good things? And I'm like, years of honing my skill. Like, it's
of
a
course,
completely useless, detrimental even skill to have because I'm so good at shopping on there. People are like, how did you find this vintage Cavalli coat? And I'm like, because I'm a beast.
But don't you think that you're actually you're like helping reverse climate change because you're spending that time not buying new stuff?
I am
You're an activist.
I'm Greta Thunberg. Like, basically, it's like me, Leo, her.
Yeah.
Sarah Hoover, welcome to Office Hours.
Thank you, Tinx. I'm so happy to be here.
Amazing writer, art historian, coolest girl that I know. Wow. I can't believe that you're on the pod. I'm so excited. You're here because you wrote a book, The Motherload, Episodes from the Brink of Motherhood, and it's a memoir, and it's coming out in January. And when I tell you this book, always in the comments, people are like, Tinx, shut up and let your guests talk. It's not about you. But this is about me, actually, because when I read this book, I cried many times. I laughed. But my overwhelming feeling was, I knew it. I knew it. Like, I have never heard someone talk about motherhood the way that I instinctively know that I would experience it. And when I read it, it was like, it was so raw and beautiful and emotional and real. And I just felt seen, even though I'm not a mother, if that makes sense. It rocked me to my core. I can't believe that you lived it and that you were able to articulate it so beautifully. And I can't wait to talk about it.
That's so nice of you. Thank you. It's so nerve-wracking. Like, my book is out in the world, my baby. People are reading it.
Yeah.
And you never know how someone's going to respond to something that's like, it is so personal. It's only my experience. And I tried really hard not to speak on the behalf of anyone else because there are people who have really different reactions to motherhood. But I had the feeling there were other people like me.
It's interesting you say that because I want to start there. So you said you only want to write from your experience. There are so many different experiences of motherhood. Although up until what I would consider a few years ago, we haven't really been privy to any other narratives about motherhood. Like, it was kind of one narrative about motherhood for the longest time. or you were super mom shamed and you were considered a bad person, a bad woman, a bad mother, if you had any differing experience. And I feel that in the past 10 years, and we can talk about why that might be, we're kind of like lifting the veil on the multitude of experiences that women have. So what gave you the courage to write your experience? Because you're right, even though it's your experience, people are shamey as hell about mothers.
Oh, I know. I'm like stealing myself for that, right? I just sort of felt like I had no choice. I was so surprised at how my life changed in a way that absolutely no one had warned me about in anything other than really glowing terms. I made it my mission. I was like, I can't live with myself if I perpetuate what I felt like was kind of just a lie. And I'm sure I'm busy now perpetuating another million lies that I, accidentally or whatever. But this felt really personal to me. Like it rocked me so much. It stole a year of my life to have postpartum depression at the level that I did. And I was like, I'm not letting myself continue on without doing everything I can to see if I can make it so that this doesn't happen, even for like one other person. I just want, if I just tell the truth of my story, maybe one person will read it and they will be able to adjust their expectations.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, is to just adjust expectations. I mean, I think the reason that I for one of the many reasons that I loved it so much is just that it felt so like raw. Like it was, you do not, in the book, you guys, it is so raw. It's not like, and then I was a little bit sad for a while. It is such a heart-wrenching exploration of postpartum depression and the changes in your body and the changes in your marriage and the changes in your identity as well. And I know I'm just like gushing at this point, but it just felt so raw. So again, like what gave you the courage and confidence to be that raw? Was it out of necessity? Was it trying to help you process? You talked a little bit about, wanting to not perpetuate a false narrative, but you just kind of felt like this is something I have to do. I have to write this level of realness.
I journal every morning. So originally when I started writing about this time of my life, I did look back at some of my early journals. So some of the rawness comes because I would like wake up in the morning and like rage scribble entries to myself. So I borrowed some language from that. But also I made a decision very early on because there were so many things that I was like, oh my God, if I talk about this, are people going to think I'm gross? If I talk about this, are people going to think I'm pathetic? If I talk about this, are people going to think I'm tainted or dirty or like a bad girl? And I really early on was like, you know what? I actually refuse to feel shame about any of this. It's what got me here in the first place. Feeling shame about admitting to the world that I was like depressed or unhappy or had sex with someone I didn't want to, or, made life decisions that I knew wouldn't be good in the end. Shame is what got me in that place. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. If I learned one thing from this, it's that I'm lucky to be alive, so lucky that I'm still here. And I'm not going to just exist in this like cloud of self-loathing. I'm just going to decide that I will not be embarrassed by anything and just tell the truth.
I love that. Why do you think that women have, up until now or up until recently, and still continue to feel pressure to say that motherhood is a dream and like, and by the way, it is for some people. Like, again, I don't want to generalize, but like there's so many different experiences of motherhood. Why do you think that women have been afraid to explore the depths of it in this way?
I mean, there's a very real fear, right? Like there are people who have postpartum depression who don't have any sort of resources and like their kids get taken away from them.
Right.
So, and the complexity of it is that while motherhood is so difficult and so nuanced, there is also this really profound connection to the creature that you make. At least for me, it took a while, but I immediately felt an intense need for him to be cared for. And the thought of him being taken away or something bad happening to him, it's like life-ending grief, right? So I think for a lot of mothers, some of that idea that you have to pretend is like, it's pragmatic, it's realistic. Like they don't have the option maybe to be truthful about their mental health because it could mean that their kids get taken from them. And it does.
So well said.
Happen.
So well said. And again, why I think it's so important for us to discuss it all so that, I mean, we kind of briefly touched on it, but like the 17 diapers,
Right.
you know, the backlash that we talked about it on this podcast, like the backlash that this woman got for sharing something that she kind of just thought was like part of her every day, and then getting insane backlash, and then all these women coming to her defense saying, you know, I didn't have 17 diapers, and you even made a video and said I didn't have 17 diapers, but I did have this experience. And that's why it's so important, so that we can collectively open up the dialogue so that women feel they can share about their depression and get help if they need it.
Totally. And, you know, there's this saying in AA, you're only as sick as your secrets. And I think it's so true. Like the minute you can release the shame of having a secret and be okay with articulating things that have happened to you or things that are going on, it's like the minute you have power over it, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted from my book. I mean, I had already healed myself or whatever. I'd already been in years of therapy. By the time I actually wrote the first draft of my book, was very therapized. It wasn't an act of healing in itself. But I already felt like I had control of the narrative, you know? And that's why it wasn't just a journal that you were reading, it was an actual book.
Right.
But that takes like a ton of work. And I think sometimes when women are going through it, there's not time. There's not time and distance when you're 3 months postpartum to have done like all the therapy you need to do to have command over the bad things that might have happened to you.
Absolutely. What is one thing that you would have told yourself before becoming a mom? If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing.
That all of the phases are shorter than you think, and that any moment when you're like, I'm so depressed, this sucks, I hate this for whatever reason, it really will end. And I remember when I first had my son being like, this is my life now. I can't believe I ruined my life. I had, like most of us in our 20s, bent over backwards to build a life that I thought was something I wanted for myself. I had sacrificed parts of my personhood to, you know, live in the city that I thought and date the men I thought and have the job I thought and all this that I thought would make me the person I wanted to be. And I was like, I worked so hard and I ruined all of it by having this baby and having my identity completely rocked. And what I wish I had known was that none of that would be forever. Like he wasn't going to be an infant forever. He wasn't going to be dependent on me for forever. His needs would change. My needs would change. And even those phases that feel like they're just indeterminably long are really like 3 months. And you can kind of do anything for 3 months. And there's like a reward to them as well, you know? But I just didn't have that perspective. There was no light at the end of the tunnel for me. I only saw tunnel.
Yeah. You're very, very honest about your marriage and how your husband made you feel at all stages of your relationship. What was the conversation like with him when you decided to write the book? Or did you, you know, discuss with him how revealing you were going to be? And like, what was that dynamic like?
Yeah. People always ask me this. They're like, has he read it? Has your mom read it? And I'm like, yes, of course.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
My husband and my mom, I mean, I'm really lucky. I have a lot of people around me who are incredibly supportive. And I think my husband's an artist. So part of his work every day is like bringing his inner demons into the world and expressing them through his art. So that was something that he gave me, not that I needed his license, but he gave me full license to do because he understood for himself the healing power of that, right? And so from the beginning when I was writing, before I ever knew it would be a book or ever knew it would be published, his whole stance was write whatever you need to, get it on the page, slander me if you want, make me sound worse, like make the story good, make me sound as bad as you need to. You're an artist now. And like, you have to live your truth. And it doesn't matter if there are casualties on the side of that, because that's what artists do.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. That's really
I felt really supported.
Can I read just a tiny bit?
Of course.
I love this part because I just want you to speak about it. It's a book about motherhood and becoming a mom and postpartum depression, but it's also so much about men and women and about the dynamics that men and women share, and the dynamic, which I'm personally really interested in a mom and her partner post baby and like how that can change. So you say, as much as I always wanted Tom to be the dream husband, a potential I saw within him, I also really, really wanted to unlearn a lot of the cultural conditioning that had led me to allow his behaviors to go unchecked, to tolerate the daily grievances for the sake of keeping the marriage intact, as so many women around me had done in their own relationships. A fact I held up as proof that things would never be different for any of us. That, whoa, I was like, underlining, I was like, wow.
Do you feel that way? Because you're a little younger than me. And when I like look on TikTok and see all my friends' dating stories now and stuff, I'm like, maybe it was just my specific time period of women that just put up with so much shit.
I think women put up with endless shit.
Okay.
And I'm obsessed with the extra like labor that women do, the emotional labor, the little things that they pick up on. I'm obsessed with like marriage dynamics. I'm like, and like I'm copying to it. Like maybe even part of why I'm single is because I am so fearful of ever doing any of that. It is like, I'm obsessed with it. So when I read that, I was like, that's so interesting. And I see, in different relationships that I'm around, like the varying degrees of it. And I want women to do whatever they want, but I want them to actively choose their choice. And I think what bothers me is that so many women just fall into it without choosing their choice and do things that they think, as you say in the book, like that they have to do to keep their marriage intact. And that's kind of what I have issue with. So yeah, can you talk a little bit?
I mean, me too. I guess like what happened with me, in the early mid 2000s when I was first dating, men were assholes. Mm-hmm. Like they were wildly unchecked. There was not even Instagram, but there was certainly no TikTok. There wasn't this like democratic dialogue among people, this opportunity for us to all be commenting on each other's stories about how men were just like being jerks all the time. So it would happen to me and I would, talk to my own friends and they were all putting up with the same behavior and they were all making the same compromises to be in relationships. So it's not like I had someone, I don't know, like you on TikTok or whose podcast that I listened to that was like, you don't have to deal with this. There was no messaging like that anywhere that I got from anyone that you didn't have to put up with the just daily inconsiderate actions on a micro level of men. And like you say, the, level of emotional, like logistical, all this sort of stuff that women have kind of, I guess, historically done in relationships. I questioned it because it didn't feel right, but I didn't see a relationship around me that wasn't the exact same. So I thought, okay, this sucks, but this is what you put up with in order to have a relationship. Mm-hmm. And I guess after I had gone through this like arduous depression and this terrible year of my life, I was just like, fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore. Like I'd actually rather be single and be a single mom and know how to make myself happy. And it was only when I really saw that path for myself and saw, I envisioned a future where I didn't have to deal with a man and didn't have to be the one who was always like organizing everything and who heard the baby cry first and notice the spill on the floor or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was only when I was like, I see a path for myself where I don't have to do this and really had a vision for myself without any men in my life that I was able to like strongly say to my partner, I'm not okay with how things are run in this relationship. And I'm very fortunate because he like leveled up and met me where I needed him to.
Yeah.
But I would have been fine if he didn't.
Yeah.
And it was only once I realized I would have been fine if he didn't that it all came together.
That's probably why it all clicked.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I hate to say, give someone an ultimatum and really be sure in yourself and be like, I'll walk. Mm-hmm. But like, that's kind of what I did. And it kind of works for me. And I don't know that it works for everyone. And I don't recommend it as a manipulation tactic, but I recommend getting to a place where you really see yourself secure and confident and happy without a man in your life. Yeah. Because it's only from that level of confidence that they have the opportunity to like get their shit together for you, I guess.
Yeah. Again, not to make it about me. I know those are going to be all the comments, but it's like I date from that place now.
Good for
which
you.
Is like, and it's so interesting. I think you made a really interesting point about just, when you were dating, because you got together with Tom when you were pretty young. So it was a while ago. And the difference from then to now is, I think it's tangible because if you look at all the statistics, I think that women are going through this sort of great awakening and and looking around and going, oh, I don't want to pick up after this guy just because I'm a woman and just because like I need a boyfriend to validate me. Women are kind of like, okay, well maybe I can get married a little later, and that's happening. And I wanted to actually talk to you about the Wall Street Journal article. I don't know if you read it, where it's like the worldwide birth rate is rapidly declining, and all across the world they've tried different incentives to try and halt the decline, and none of them are working. Even really like pretty serious financial incentives. And it's like, well, why is that? And it's like, because mothers have gone so unsupported and men have gone so unchecked for so long.
Totally.
And now women are like, I'm not going to take your fucking tax cut just so I have a baby with this guy. Like, that's not going to work for us.
And I think it's sad, but it's also interesting because I think women are realizing too that like your life doesn't come together when you're 23 or 24 normally. You really have to find yourself, and that takes time. And I think most people feel that they're the most successful parents when they have that life experience, when their life is a little bit more together. But unfortunately, biology has not caught up with that culture. And it's hard to have a baby when you're 45.
Totally.
But like when you're 45 is kind of when you feel ready, you know?
Right.
I don't know, I'm not 45 yet, but I think many women are realizing that in their 20s, like they're still having fun. They're still discovering who they are as a person. They're still discovering what makes them happy. They're not trying to settle for men who, aren't their equals. And to do all of that, like you just need time.
100%.
But I mean, guess what your biological clock doesn't give you?
I know.
Time.
I know. That's like something we grapple with in this community and on this podcast all the time, is like not like there's things like the biological clock has not caught up to us. And also I don't want to be doom and gloom, because I think that this shift will right size, but I do believe us to be living in the middle of a paradigm shift. And all of like the Scott Galloway stats about men falling behind and like we need to like be teaching boys different in school and all this stuff, like we're kind of like getting the worst of it, like the single girls now, because we're kind of like, I don't want to settle. I know who I am, but the men just aren't quite there yet.
Yeah, they're not going to therapy.
And and it's, when you look at all the dating app statistics, it's like 80% of women want like 10, there's like 10%. It's all
the
unmatched.
math doesn't work.
The math doesn't work.
But you know what I read the other day? I don't know if it's true because I can't remember where I read it, but I assume it was a reputable news source because that's almost all I read. 73% or 72% of CEOs have a partner that doesn't work outside of the home.
Oh my God.
And it's like, yeah, no shit. Why would a woman want to have a baby if she doesn't have someone at home doing everything else for her? Because it means that she likely will not have the time or energy in her day to ever be a CEO. And like, most of us love being busy and accomplishing things and doing stuff and putting our brains to use just like men do. So why would we make that choice, And I found that so revealing.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. I don't know. I know. I feel like I'm going to be ready to have a baby when I'm 40.
Correct.
And I don't know. Well, Giselle pregnant at 44, I just saw again.
Love that for her.
Good for her.
There was an article that you guys sent me before today that I read. And the woman, I can't remember what news or Pop Sugar it was on. And the woman who wrote this piece wrote about how she has a friend whose pregnancy was called geriatric because she was 35, and how like silly it seems to call a pregnancy geriatric after,
So
at 35
silly.
seems so young, right? But she was like, but maybe it's not so hard for women in their 40s to get pregnant. And then she listed some celebrities who had gotten pregnant later in life. I think like Chloe Sevigny, and I can't remember who else she listed, but
Hilary Swank.
Right. Yes. But like my reaction to that was, okay, but these are women who have access to the best doctors.
That's true.
Price is not an issue. Best medical care. We don't know if they have had eggs frozen from when they were 32. Like we have no idea what their scenarios are. But for most people, like science resoundingly tells us it is really difficult to get pregnant, especially spontaneously, naturally later in life. That's just an unfortunate side effect of biology.
I know. And the girls like on the pod ask me a lot. They're like, I'm buying what you're selling, Tinx, in terms of like, don't settle, fall in love with yourself first, focus on yourself, make amazing friendships, like build a life you love. They're like, except for the biological clock thing.
It's so annoying.
And it's
What are you going to do?
It's very annoying. And I think I don't have a good answer for that. It's extremely frustrating. But then I say back to them, well, what are you going to do? Just like settle with a guy just to have a kid? And that's a like difficult conversation to have, but it's like, okay, well then let's play it out. What's your answer? Settle and just pick the next guy and like whatever. You can freeze your eggs, or you can wait and you can see what happens. Like, I'm not saying that like I have any sort of agenda. I have a huge fear of any woman settling just because of a biological clock, which sucks. Like that's a fucking bind we're in.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Do you think there's a way that women start having babies with men who they, can appreciate or who they want to be in some sort of partnership with, but they don't expect so much? That's how it feels like selling ourselves short, though, to not expect so much out of your partner. Maybe it's men need to level up. How do we make that happen?
I think that the men have to level up. I think it's the only way. It's.
But I think this is another reason why I felt like I had to write something really honest, because the truth is, my reaction to having a baby, I almost felt like a dude, because I was like, wait, when they pulled him out of my body and put him on me, I felt nothing, and I had been sold this magical Disney story that like when you meet your baby, you fall in love. Your heart explodes into a million pieces, and all of the like picking up diapers and wiping butts and all of the hard work and sleepless nights feels worth it because you love the kid so much. But I didn't feel that at all. And looking back, I remember thinking like, maybe that's how all men feel when they meet their baby for the first time, or many men feel when they meet their baby for the first time. So I was kind of like trying to put myself in those shoes, and it would be hard to like commit to doing things the way your wife did them if you had none of the emotion that many women feel when they meet their baby. So that's why I think it's important to like be honest with stories like this so that everyone's expectations are set. Because then a man could say like, instead of lying and being like, yeah, I love the kid so much, could be like, I don't feel anything yet. Obviously don't want anything bad to happen to him, but I don't feel that.
It takes a while.
Yes, it takes a while. So like for the next few months, I want to help you. Let's do this equally, half and half. But like, I don't know. I don't want to have to hide the fact, because a lot of the times I think women get frustrated by their partners when they get home, because you're like, you're not doing this like me. You don't care to the level I do. I feel that way sometimes even now, where I'm like, I'm so paranoid about my children because I don't want anything, obviously knock wood, bad to ever happen. So I'm thinking 10 steps ahead of everybody else. I'm seeing every possible danger. I'm seeing like the electrical cord over there and like the water bottles over there, whatever. I'm thinking of everything bad that could happen. But like, if you don't love them to the degree I do, like, are you thinking that way? I don't know. That's its own burden that I feel like women really hold. And then there's the other thing, which is that we all know science has put almost no resources into women's healthcare, right? Like, I think I've read recently that 5 times as much scientific grant research money has been given to erectile dysfunction as has been given to like premenstrual syndrome, PCOS, endometriosis, fertility altogether. Like the numbers are staggeringly not in favor of research into women's health. So is there a chance that scientists are going to come through for us, give us an amazing laser to take away all the sun damage of our 20s, and also make it so that we can have babies until we're 50?
They're working on it.
Like, can they be faster with more money?
They need to be faster, and we need health, reproductive health care for everyone, which is why it's important that you go and vote on Tuesday, by the way, everybody. We're not fucking around anymore. It's Tuesday. Please, for the love of God, for every woman on this planet. But then I'm like, the IVF and the egg freezing conversation is like, yes, we need them to do it faster, and we need it to be more democratic. We need everybody to have access to it. But I'm at a point now where I'm like, I haven't frozen my eggs, and it's rough, by the way. I did it for my second. Totally. And again, this is a no judgment zone. This is my personal experience. I wonder how much of the reason I haven't frozen my eggs is because I truly feel resentful. And I feel that if I went to freeze my eggs, I would be so fucking pissed off that every 34-year-old guy out there isn't having to do the same. Nobody is asking a 34-year-old guy out there, oh, well, have you thought about freezing your sperm, or can you do this and that? I'm at the top of my game. I have a great life. I love my job. I'm resentful. I'm resentful of the choice. And I know that's kind of cutting off my nose to spite my face, but I believe that your body kind of hears you. And I've talked about this before, but I think that's part of the reason I haven't done it is because I'd be so fucking mad. And also, it also annoys me how another lie that's perpetuated is like, it's like going to get like a little laser on your face. People are like, have you frozen your eggs? And I'm like, have I shot myself full of hormones through a month and then had an operation to have an egg retrieval that might not even work and I probably have to do again? Like, it's an amazing science. It's an amazing breakthrough, but say it what it is. Call it what it is, which is a huge impact on women's bodies.
It's terrible.
Again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's pumping yourself full of hormones. The shots, I don't know if you're a needle phobic.
I don't like them.
Yeah.
Except in my face.
Yeah, exactly. How funny is that? For some reason, when the Botox needle comes out,
I'm like giddy.
I feel nothing. Same.
I'm like more.
But IVF, I would be like shaking and terrified every single time.
Yeah. So
I know. I understand the resentment. I think it's totally valid. And I also am like, this is yet another reason why it's so important to tell all these stories because look, like if I didn't know that having a baby can really suck, then how would any man know?
Totally.
And if I'm not going to be honest about it, then and unfortunately men make policy decisions for the most part.
Right.
They make these decisions that impact women. But if we're not telling them our stories without shame and really loudly announcing and normalizing all of these things that women go through, then it's difficult to expect men to have proper empathy for us if they don't
That's fair.
know what's going on. Okay.
That's fair.
But don't you think with all the shit that we go through, men, don't they owe it to us to be true gentlemen?
100%.
What do I even say?
100%. That's the very fucking least they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why so many women struggle with dating today because it's like, you can't even be a gentleman. You can't even be smart and charming and text me on time and I'm gonna go through all this potentially for you. It's insane.
The bar is so low. The bar is in hell. It's crazy.
Okay, let's do a few pop culture stories. Let's switch gears. They do all have a little motherhood, theme to them. Prince William doesn't want his kids to exist in their own little world when it comes to privilege. So Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis might have lived very privileged lives as the sons and daughter of the future king and queen, but Prince William's new documentary, Prince William, We Can End Homelessness, he shared that teaching his kids about those less fortunate is something he considers crucial as a parent. Okay, so he said, when I was very small, my mother started talking about homelessness, much like I do with my children now on the school run. That's a cute image. Mm-hmm. But see, why do I think it's I'm like, oh, he takes them to school, as he should. He's a father. He should drive them to school.
Literally, what else is he doing?
True. He's ending homelessness, okay? So Princess Diana frequently took William and his brother Prince Harry to homelessness charities like The Passage and Centrepoint, and the Prince of Wales said this instilled a lifelong passion to help the homeless. Okay, that's great. I love that for him. Good for him. I love Wills and Kate. I love them. I can't help it.
I have not a bad word to say. And I also love the little boy, I think it's their son.
Louis.
The one who's always naughty.
I think
in the background who sticks his tongue out and stuff.
So cute. No, they're
cool.
cute. And you can tell that they're raising them just in a great way. And I do believe that Diana had such a massive impact on William and really he's carrying her spirit. And even Kate, you can tell she's really embodying it and making the kids fantastic. I love the royals. Sorry, sue me. I do.
Have you read, by the way, the new book called Kingmaker about a woman named Pamela Harriman?
No.
Who was married to the son of Winston Churchill and became a huge advisor to Winston Churchill during the war?
No.
You would love it.
Okay. Next on my
list. Add it
list.
to the list.
I love anything about yes, I need something after your book. So it's perfect. I'll dive into that. Okay. Oh, this is I really want your take on. So piece in the New York Times called article, opinion piece, should famous people be telling us this much about their illnesses? And the article references Celine Dion's documentary, I Am Celine Dion, that obviously was super, did you watch it? Mm-hmm. Super emotional about, her terrible experience with stiff person syndrome. Lady Gaga's documentary, 5'2", which she revealed her daily struggle with fibromyalgia. Selma Blair's public diagnosis of MS, and then Michael J. Fox's movie Still, which, reveals the severity of his Parkinson's disease. So the author, Muriel Silkoff, argues that for fans, these narratives can create kind of a whiplash feeling roller coaster. So she's kind of weighing the pros and cons of these documentaries, and they a lot of the time they're under the guise of destigmatizing and raising awareness, and I did learn a lot about different diseases from these documentaries, but ultimately the author argues that it's kind of like the arc of these documentaries is always like, oh, and look how far they've come, and like they're so amazing despite this. And then if other people out there are struggling with it, they're kind of like, well, fuck, I'm not like singing at the Grammys and I have this syndrome, so like this is terrible for me.
I love when people share their truth when it feels like heartfelt and authentic. Mm-hmm. It can be really cringy and obvious when it's being done because they're like, I don't know, need validation about it or want attention from it or something. But like kind of reminds me of the Ozempic conversation. I'm like, nobody owes you their medical truth.
I agree with you.
Like, even if they're your friends, they don't owe you to tell you anything. I think it's weird when people lie about stuff.
Lying is bad.
Lying is just an odd choice to be like, to lie. And I don't think anyone owes you their truth. And I think if someone decides to tell you their truth, that is really brave and honest, but you can sense when has ulterior motives, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think that in the instances of, the examples that they put in the article, I think they were all, I actually didn't agree with it. I didn't find.
None of those examples to me were bad. Like, I was never once in the Celine Dion one did it rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of find everybody's truth pretty interesting, as you said, as long as it's coming from a genuine place. Like, I'm obsessed with reading memoirs. I'm obsessed with documentaries where people go really deep. And quite frankly, I like watching TikToks where people, tell me what they've overcome or like what they're dealing with.
I'm a total voyeur with stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know that watching a documentary about something would, necessarily make a person who is struggling with the same illness feel bad. I think we've all collectively reached a point of so much, like there's just so much information and there's so much content. Perhaps that's what we're picking up on, where it's just like there's so many stories that sometimes it can feel like, they said whiplash in here, and it does kind of feel like I'm like, oh, this person has this and this person that. Maybe information overload is the term that we're looking for, but I don't know. I like the documentaries.
The other takeaway from it too is that like almost everybody is struggling with something, right?
100%.
And like, I don't know, I felt very failed by the medical industry in my birth because I felt really dismissed by doctors. And that was a really personal experience to me. But I do hear that over and over again, not with these celebrities who have so much access, but with people that I see on TikTok and stuff like that in pregnancy and birth. I think particularly in ailments that afflict women,
of course,
like endometriosis, et cetera, that they feel really dismissed by doctors. And I feel like one takeaway for me is just so many people out there suffer from things that have them in pain or suffering their whole lives.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it seems like a lot of medicine can be really dismissive to their concerns, and it might be nice for them to feel, seen by a celebrity or something, or their cause made larger.
Absolutely. I mean, I have PCOS and endometriosis, and I always, kind of grapple with how much to share because first of all, I have access that a lot of people don't. Right. I can pay for private healthcare if I want it. And I understand that that's not available to everybody. What I try to always say to when I'm making content about it is like, I want to empower all of the people listening to me to ask questions and to be brave and to not be dismissed versus telling them what to do. I think where we get into trouble with all this kind of stuff is, people, influencers or whatever saying, well, take this or have that or, whatever, because it's like no two bodies are the same. No two people's access are the same. No two PCOS symptoms are the same. So it's like, what I always try to, and it's tough because sometimes people are like, every week people are like, I just got diagnosed with endometriosis. What should I do? And I'm like, I'm not a doctor. But here, you have to stand up to your doctor and say, and I'm even intimidated. And I feel like I'm a pretty headstrong, educated person. But sometimes I'm like, wait, I literally don't know what you're talking about. Or like, what does that mean? And what do you mean? Like the egg, this and that. And I don't even fucking understand half the time. So I think if sharing stories empowers people to do their own research and to stand up to different doctors and ask the questions, then that's great.
Totally, of course.
So there we go. Do you have TikTok?
Yeah,
You don't watch it that much.
I like when people send them to me, but I don't need another addiction.
100%.
So I'm trying to double lately.
Who do you guys think men hate more? Child-free women or single mothers?
This is a tough one because honestly, it seems like it's a photo finish in terms of which one of us they hate the most, single moms or child-free women. If I had to guess, I would say that they hate child-free women more because at least single moms have fulfilled their natural purpose, right? They've done the reproductive labor. We haven't. We somehow cheated the world out of the reproductive labor that they were entitled to from us. But I'm going to reference Lizzie's series on threats to the patriarchy.
Single moms are proof that women are natural leaders, so much so that people don't even acknowledge when women are leading their families because it's expected. In the absence of her child's father, a single mom is supposed to just wither away and die, or as some would call it, take accountability. Single, child-free women. Let me ask you a question. In a world where a woman could quite literally go outside and hail a man like one would hail a cab, what would happen if all women discovered that they can get to their destinations using their own vehicles? So the objective is to make the end zone look like a lonely, sad place that nobody wants to be. When in reality, single child-free women are the happiest demographic in the world. And when people see single child-free women living their lives and being happy, this forces people to reevaluate the world around them as well as how they see themselves.
Okay.
Lots to chew on.
Holy moly. Wait, I have a really dumb question to rewind the clock a little bit. When we were talking about how birth rates are down everywhere, why is that necessarily bad?
By the way, I don't know.
But why do we just have to keep exceeding population?
Yeah, and surely we are treating the earth like shit. We don't have enough resources. I'm like, there's so many people who live in poverty. I don't understand why it's a bad thing either. But Elon Musk is literally obsessed with declining birth rates. So I need to know why.
I need someone to explain it to me as if I'm 9 years old, why that's an inherently bad thing. Like if it's by choice, if it's because people are making a choice that makes them happy.
Surely,
then
yes.
Why is that a bad thing? Okay, anyway, great. We're on the same page with that one. I don't know which. I mean, both. The answer is both. But I kind of have the feeling it's like I'm leaning towards women who don't have kids at all are more despised by men because they're right. Like if you have a kid, it's proof that you are, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm saying this is perhaps the viewpoint of men, that it is proof that you're like docile enough to submit to your duty as a woman.
I know. I think men hate they hate child-free women, and I sometimes even won't even say like on a date, like, because I'm really undecided about if I want to have kids or not, but I feel like sometimes I'll feel like a little lie creeping in if I'm on a date, because I'm like, not that I want to mislead anybody, but like if it's early on, I don't want to get into like,
totally,
you have no idea the emotional labor that like women go through, and I don't know. So yeah, I think that men are really put off by child-free women. I think it's a really interesting conversation. And yeah, actually one more thing that I do want to talk about before we move on to the next TikTok is like something we talk about a lot on this podcast is the relationship between mothers and child-free women. And some people in the community have like difficulty relating or like staying as close to their friends if they're in different life stages. And one thing that was really beautiful in your book that I loved is really how your friends, you were so close with your best friends and they were such constant characters in the book and in your life. And can you talk about your wider friend group and how do you find it difficult to be as close to women who don't have children, or was that not a thing?
That's not hard for me because I feel essentially the problems that the women in my life face, no matter kind of what stage they're in, all boil down to essentially the same thing, which is that they are happiest when they can make informed choices that impact their life. And where they don't feel misled, and where, and this, I mean this like at every level. And so for my friends that don't have kids, I can still, I'm like, I still like doing tons of stuff I like doing before I had children. Like, I love partying. I love drinking. I love going to cultural events. I still do that with my friends who don't have kids. I'm not stupid enough to assume, and I think this is where people go wrong, that they're going to want to like come to my kids' weekend music class with his 6-year-old friends or whatever, you know, like there are certain aspects of my new life that I don't expect them to enjoy. That being said, one of my best friends has not missed one of my son's birthdays. Of course, I always have a full bar.
Of course.
But like, you know, I know how to make these things, I think, appealing to everyone. And I do have friends that are parents that, as I said before, parenthood goes in phases, right? So when you're really in it, like when you have really little kids, you just don't have energy and time to do some of the stuff that you used to do. You like can't go on a girls' weekend or whatever. But that ends.
Of course.
And I think, I don't know, I relate to my friends about such like deep emotional stuff. It's not about like just where we're hanging out or what we're doing or like what trips we're going on, you know? I talk to them on a really deep level. That's why I have like incredibly smart, intellectually curious people around me. Yeah. And you can always connect with someone on that.
I agree with you. You made it sound so simple, and I completely agree. I mean, I think friendship ebbs and flows, and people go through, you know, and you just have to, if you truly love someone and you think that, you know, you want them to be in your life, you have to really allow the ebb and flow, and also like communicate, like say to your friend, like I'm always like, well, you know, like, can I come over? What, you know, what do you need right now or whatever?
And give people grace.
100% give people grace.
And if you choose to have friends that you trust and that are honest people and that have integrity, which you should, they'll tell you if they're mad at you. They'll tell you if they're not hanging out with you because something's wrong.
Of course.
You know, if you did something fucked up and you can make your amends. But like for the most part, I think it's not so hard to keep those relationships strong if you're just like empathetic to everyone's different situation
100%.
and still find each other on the things you know you love, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. And yes, I agree.
Doing bedtime is really important to me with my kids. So I make a little calendar and I mark down the nights I'm going to do bedtime, and the other nights I go fucking wild.
Right. And
like they know that I'm not going to be home those nights. Either my husband will be home, we get a babysitter or whatever. And like those are the nights that I see my friends that don't have kids. And I can do like birthday parties and all that crap with my friends that have kids.
Yeah. So beautifully said. Guys, it is possible. No, I've been saying that. I've been saying it is. And you just have to like ride out the ebbs and flows. Like if someone has a newborn, like they're going to be like, they're not going to call you for like wine, you know? So just let them do their, you know, it's about understanding. And again, like you said, giving people grace.
But do you ever find, so I'm a big believer in the ebb and flow thing. Big believer.
Me too.
And I also think like friendships change over time, and the ones that are meant to be in your life come back to you. And you just have to like, you know, allow people to go off and find themselves. But I have had in the last few years a friendship or two that I felt like was irreparably damaged because I was a little too laissez-faire. And I was just like, go do you. And when it was time to like circle back and find each other again, there was too much distance.
It's happened to me before too, because you change.
Exactly.
Because that's the
and
thing.
You don't change together because there was no together. You were not talking about anything in the meantime, you know?
Yeah. I think sometimes in practicality, riding out the dips can be like a little bit more uncomfortable than we might like. And you just kind of, if you really love them, you kind of have to like have those awkward phone calls and awkward dinners just as a little touch point, because otherwise
push through it.
Yeah, kind of. Just not like force yourself to hang out with them all the time, but just like enough so that by the time you're ready to come back together, you're not like, oh, you got married or whatever. You know what I mean? That's like,
I'm always really worried about that because a weird thing that happens as you get older is that people leave New York.
I don't want to talk about that ever. I'm not ready. I'm in my, I just am like my goo goo gaga phase with New York. I'll be
Mine
here.
will never end.
Mine will
like,
never.
But some people's ends.
I know.
And when that happens, I'm like, I'm always so scared because I'm like,
yeah,
okay, like we can do this thing where you move to the suburbs and whatever. But if we don't make effort, like, yes, there's the ebb and there's the flow. But if we don't make concerted effort, there's going to be too much ebb and flow.
No,
and you're
hard.
never coming back here and I'm never moving there. So how do we keep that up?
That's hard.
And it does happen. Oh my God, it's so sad.
I know.
I just want everyone to have the spirit of like when we were 23 living in New York partying all the time forever, but have the, you know, maturity
and money
and financial maturity. Exactly.
Yeah.
Preach.
No, I agree. No, I know. I hate change and I want everybody to live together forever. And I've offered to start looking into a compound for all of my friends, but nobody.
A big townhouse for all of us.
Something like that. Something fabulous. Because I don't want to be alone. Like I want to, because my favorite thing about moving back to New York is the community that I feel. I have so many friends here and I see them all the time. And I love how many new friends I'm making and they feel real. And it feels so like, it feels like the best. And I don't know.
Chosen family.
Chosen family. Okay, let's do an AMA quickly because we've just been yapping the whole time.
Okay.
Blair, 28. When can I ask about kids? I'm recently out of a long-term relationship of 5 years. We began dating when we were fresh out of college, and the thing I loved about him is that our visions of the future were aligned. However, out of the blue, about 5 months ago, before our marriage, he sprung on me having kids has become a non-negotiable. It never was before. In fact, we would often talk about having kids. He said he saw our friends having them and how much their lives changed. He was frightened that it was something he wasn't going to want anymore. Okay, he doesn't want them, fine. Having kids is important to me, so I had the strength to call off the engagement and start over dating in the world. I don't want to waste time anymore. I want to date with intention, not only to find someone I care about, but to find someone who has like-minded and unwavering visions of the future. Is it crazy to ask early on what they imagine for the future with kids? When do you think it is okay to ask? I don't even want to waste a second date on someone who doesn't want them. Ugh, please help.
I'm so glad for her that she knows what she wants.
100%.
I think that's fabulous. Okay, so you're probably going to be like, Sarah, no, you've been out of the dating pool for too long. But I think that when said with humor, you can get away with saying anything.
I agree with you.
I think like first date, 5 minutes in, if you can find a way to make it funny,
yeah,
you can be like, so kids, yes, no, should I run now? Like whatever, but you have to find a way to make it funny.
That's such good advice.
Don't you think? Because otherwise, like he might be taken off guard and he might be like, okay, you're totally weird and this is a red flag, but like.
That's actually really cute.
But it's not embarrassing if you make it a joke.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
If you sit him down and are like, here's the contract, here's where I'd like you to sign that you indeed want children. Yes, then you're psycho. But I think she's got to find a way to make it funny. And if she knows, then she knows. And she shouldn't waste her time.
No, and you shouldn't. Yeah. So what's the funny way that I can say, I will only have a baby if you fully appreciate the emotional labor that women go through, and you have to read Sarah Hoover's book before we ever consider having a baby in a jokey way.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'll just bring him. I'll bring your book and I'll just slide it across on first dates.
Put nudes
and go.
in it. Be like, there are nudes on certain pages. I'm not going to tell you which ones. You just have to keep reading.
And if you don't read this, then you won't appreciate it. And that's the only way I'm having a kid with you. Okay, perfect.
I mean, maybe it should just be like required reading in a high school or a college somewhere. Maybe moms should give it to their sons at the onset of puberty. I don't know.
I didn't even talk to you about that. You guys, I need you all to read this book, whether you have kids, whether you don't have kids, whether you want them, whether you're unsure. This book is a 10 out of 10, so meaningful. And I loved it. I felt so wow. It was fantastic. I mean, they all know that I'm obsessed with memoirs, and this is immediately on my favorites list forever. So thank you for writing it. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being so brave and honest and just funny. There's so many funny parts in it, even though there's so many heartbreaking parts. There's so many parts where I was like actually cracking up with laughter because it's just like the way your brain works is so amazing. So
thank you. You're like way too nice to me.
Pre-order really Sarah's book. It's coming out what day, Jan?
January 14th.
January 14th, which will be great because we'll all be doing dry Jan and we'll be fucking miserable and we'll need a really good book to distract us. So pre-order it. You can also we're big into Substack. I'm trying to get everyone into more reading these days. So Sarah has an amazing Substack. It's about art. And where can they find you on Instagram? Where else?
Sarah Hoover is my Instagram with 2 H's. I'm dabbling in TikTok.
Okay, she's dabbling in TikTok. Yeah. Her Instagram is incredible. She has the coolest clothes. Coolest girl ever. Thank you so much for coming on. I adore you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.